the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
For Tennessee, it's still Alabama. I still think they're number one no matter what for the foreseeable future. It's not Vanderbilt. It's not Kentucky. It's not South Carolina. I think it's not Georgia. I think Florida is probably number two still. If I had to really nail it down, I would say the most passionate animosity, because I think that's a part of it with the rivalry, is like there has to be some real animosity on both sides. And I think Tennessee versus Florida and Tennessee versus Alabama has that real long-term animosity that I just don't think any of their other conference brethren can match in those atmospheres. But I think on the Georgia side, I'm not really sure. So I wanted to ask you, Matt Green, heading into 2024, who is Georgia's real rival? Because like on first, like I my first thing was Florida, but I was also like, I don't know if is it Alabama now? Is it South? It's been South Carolina in a weird way sometimes. Like they've been kind of attached to Georgia in the permanent rival stuff. Like who is Georgia's main rival now in the SEC?
Georgia is South Carolina's biggest rival in the SEC.
Yeah.
South Carolina is not Georgia. South Carolina's like 7th on Georgia's list, but it feels like everyone's a rival with Georgia, but because Tennessee, like that's not one of the official rivalries, but Georgia, Tennessee, you can tell me it's not a rivalry. Like it's Georgia, Tennessee is massive, right? Like two border states right there. But I think
I'm not saying it's not a rivalry. I'm just saying in terms like you have to do a pecking order. And if we're doing the pecking order for fans, I just don't think it's above Florida and Alabama. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, the last decade, Georgia's clearly biggest like competition has been Alabama, right? Like that's been the gold standard of what Georgia's been trying to do for the last decade is what Alabama's doing. But with how much history there is, like we were talking about, me and you were having that conversation the other day about Georgia not being able to win in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think somebody said in one of our comments. And it's like, wait, Georgia never even actually really went to Bryant-Denny Stadium. Like, I think Saban only beat Georgia one time at Bryant-Denny Stadium. He was there for 16 years or something. But Georgia beat him year one with Matthew Stafford, and then played him one other time the entire time Nick Saban was there. And then hosted him, I want to say twice, the blackout, and then that rain game where they got blown out as well. So the fact that they played 4 regular season games, and we're talking the last almost 20 years, because they've been so good, they've played in how many? 3 SEC championships, 2 national championships. So they've been playing at the highest level. So those have been like the most important games. But there's just something about like the timeless feeling of animosity with Florida. Like Georgia, Florida is second to none in my book. Like the whole cocktail party and just having all the fans down there, even though it's like not even really like, it's weird because obviously you're drinking with other fans of opposing teams. Like there's fans are constantly just, co-mingling. But then once you get in that stadium, I don't know, there's something about Georgia, Florida that's just the next level. Obviously Auburn and Georgia, Deep South's oldest rivalry. That one goes way back. That one, I feel like that you'd have to say that's Georgia's second rival. But yeah, I mean, Florida and Auburn are on another level. Like if they're doing anything to Georgia's schedule, like I think most Georgia fans like the idea of not playing Tennessee every year is just it's a deal breaker, like Georgia and Tennessee should be happening every year, but obviously
it won't be.
Something's going to have to change. Yeah. Everyone has these games they want to play every year. And like South Carolina, Georgia isn't happening this year. Right. So like that's a weird one to see. So I think Georgia, if they only get 2 locked, and we don't really even know what they're going to do the future schedules yet, but I think without a doubt, Florida and Auburn are at the top of that list.
It's interesting you say Auburn, because I do you think that's how Georgia fans feel across the board about Auburn still, or do you think that's waned with Auburn's kind of just incompetent administration?
I think if you're talking to students right now, Tennessee might be number 1, just because of what that game was in Sanford Stadium in 2022. In 2022. So, and then the last year with kind of how like the energy that there was in Neyland Stadium and running the very first play for a touchdown, and then Georgia kind of responding the way they did. Like that's like Alabama type stuff. You start taking the best swings of other teams, and then, you get right back up and you take care of business. Like that's the thing that Georgia didn't do in the past. So right now, Tennessee, just because of how good they are compared to Florida and Auburn, I think Tennessee probably feels like a bigger rival. But I think Tennessee might replace Auburn kind of in recent history. But I mean, that was not a good Auburn team a year ago, and they took Georgia to the wire. Like, because there's just something different about that rivalry, especially games played in Jordan-Hare Stadium. But obviously, Georgia won several blowouts recently with Auburn, but there's still been those close games. So I don't know. I think just the history that's involved, that they've played. I mean, that's the longest running series in the entire SEC. So I mean, just for that reason, like you can't stop playing Georgia Auburn.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.